Hello, my name is Norman Mitchell. I'm 57 years old. Uh, I grew up in Compton, California from the age of, say, 8, always part of Compton, California. But I got involved in gangs say around 11, 12, 13, just kind of hanging around them. And really that came from playing sports. I was a pretty good athlete and I used to play sports a lot. My mom was, I'm coming from a single parent household. My mom was 13 when she had my older brother and she was 16 when she had me. She had her own struggles, but she stayed down with us. But doing sports, a lot of times she wasn't at our games. And so me being a pretty decent athlete, a lot of the fellas that was older kind of took to giving me props and acknowledging my game, and we played football in the park and stuff like that. So I grew up kind of in the streets. So the more mom didn't come to the game, the more I wasn't so quick to going home. So I'm hanging out in the park after the game. I'm getting accolades in the park, if it's kind of just roughhousing or the likes. Around the 7th to 8th grade, I was actually an active gang member, and I took on that role for up until I was 34 years old. In 1988, I caught my life crime. It was kidnapped for ransom, and I got convicted in 1990. Double life was what they gave me. And when I went to prison, I really wasn't tripping. Like, I was in prison and I felt pretty comfortable. To my shame, I actually felt comfortable in prison. I had to make a little adjustments. My first prison was Pelican Bay, and we go to the yard 3 days, we down for 3 months, 6 months. 3 days, we down for 3 months, 6 months. So that was, and it was life, and it was normal. It was actually normal, and that's the sad part, that it was normal. It was internally normal. So I remember one visit my mom came up. Well, this part of my story. So the first visit that my mom came to visit me is 14 hours to drive from Compton, California to Pelican Bay, and she had my son, who was about 7 at the time. And by the time she got from Compton to Eureka, where Pelican Bay is at, up that way, I had caught my first shoe turn. So instead of a 2-day visit, it was a 45-minute visit behind a little window. She said, Norman, she said, I'll do whatever you ask me to do and go wherever you want me to go. But what I don't want to do is have a visit behind this glass. We don't get no family visits, blah, blah, blah. So all I get to do is sit up under you, and I'm cool with that, but I don't want to do it behind the glass. And I looked at her, and I looked in her eyes, and I told her that this was crep. I said, this crep. And she said, okay, and we left the visit as is. And as I go back to my cell, and they handcuff me as I go into my cell, it's like something flashed by my eyes, and it was like, your father, he was a womanizer, and he neglected you, and you grew up a womanizer, neglecting, your children. And I made a statement that I don't want to be like my father anymore. I don't want to be like my father. I love my father. He cool, he funny, he all of that, but he wasn't aware of his effect. So at that point, I said I was going to go and do a vocation. I was in prison about 13, 14 years. When I first came to prison, I wasn't about to do no vocation. I wasn't going to work for prison. I was going to be on that yard. I was going to be with whatever the business was. And that's kind of how I lived. So this was the first time in my life that I said I was going to do a vocation, And I had to say this, it's on camera, but this is real talk. So Sugar Free was out at the time, the rapper, and Sugar Free used to say, stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that came to my mind. Norman, you got to stay ready so you won't have to get ready. You always giving people a reason to cancel you out. And it was, and so I made a decision to do that. So in C status, I had some more revelations. One is that the gangs had me all my life, but my children never had a father. That was years ago, but it still affects me. So I decided, man, like, you know, the homies had me, you know what I'm saying? Let me give my children a chance to have me. So I made a decision to disavow myself from gangs. I'm 57 years old. I made that decision at 34. To this day, it was the hardest, most difficult decision I ever made in my whole entire life. But it was also the greatest decision I made in my entire life, too. So when I started adding myself to the equation, then I started seeing gangs different. I started seeing my children different. I started seeing women different, you know, and I mattered. So I'm back on the yard. I end up going to a vocation, computer repair. And as I go to computer repair, here come Amity. Amity comes on the yard. Everybody's hearing about this program. It's a level 4. You know, it really was unacceptable to have a program like that on a level 4 because it was, you know, we doing prison. Well, come to find out, one of my best friends, Charles Goshen, was coming into the prison as a worker after getting out of prison. When I was fighting my case, he was fighting a case too, and he ended up getting manslaughter, ended up getting some time. But he got in the program and he changed his life. So when he came up to Lancaster as an employee, it was shocking. I was amazed. I'm like, folks, you know. And this is when he come and say, Norm, I come to help you. You know, I come to help you out. I'm in this program. They have some mentor seats. You know, we're about to start this program here. And I would like you to, you know, get in that seat. And it was cool because I didn't have no seat. I didn't, you know, so I'm looking at it. So God is kind of like helping me, positioning me. And it's funny because in my vocation class, there was a classroom in between there. And Amity, their first spot was in that class in between there. So every morning, I'm having a conversation with my childhood friend, and he's talking about change, and he's talking about the paradigm shifts, and he's talking about all of these things that now I'm kind of open to because I'm in the midst of a change. And every morning we would have coffee, and he would just talk to me. So just hearing his change, I believed in Amity. And then I met Naya. Naya made people who wasn't in no ideal of changing. She would come into my class, my office service class, her and Ernie Logan, and they would sit in a little circle with me to kind of introduce me to what the process is, what my role would be as a lifer mentor if I was to get that seat. And my partners there is all gang related. They still making knives, they still blowing, well, you know, I'm blowing too, so I'm blowing pot, they blowing, we still doing prison stuff. I was just not gang related as much, I say, because I relapsed 3 times in that. But to say all of that, Naya would come in, they would sit down in a little circle, and my partners then would overhear our conversation. And when Naya would leave the room, my friends would always say, like, man, like, I like her. I like what she talking about. You know, it would make them feel some type of energy, even though they wasn't ready for change. And I'm like, I'm telling you, man, like, I'm going this way. Y'all still going this way, but I'm going this way. Like, I'm changing. I need to change this. I don't know about nobody else, but I needed to change my shit, right? Because I was in prison, but prison was in me way before I got to prison. That's what I came to learn. And so Naya helped me understand that. And in doing so, she said, I want to take you from number to name. Like, it's important that you know who you are. It's important that we greet people with the respect and integrity and dignity that they name represent. Because, you know, your parents and them gave you these names. So Norm Dog or Tiny Lobe or you know, Flacco or whatever the case may be ain't the name. you know, it's a moniker, it become an alter ego. But when you humble yourself to your name, and Lord knows I didn't like the name Norman, but when I humbled myself to it, I understood the power in it. I kind of accepted the principles of life, that I affect people and people affect me. And then it just became, what do I do with that? So Amity started helping us and helping me just as a mentor, as a student, because I'm a student and I'm a mentor, so I'm trying to give something, but I needed to get it. And sitting in them circles and being honest, engaging each other, holding each other accountable, calling each other on some of their stuff when we know that, you know, that ain't the truth, and what we learned about cause and effect. They started being some very intense circles. And if we was able to build community in a level 4, in a level 3, in a level 2, and wherever, you know what I'm saying, we should be able to take that community right here to the streets. So that's why I'm kind of here. Not kind of, that's why I'm here, because I believe in community. Treating people like you would like to be treated. But I will say this, if it's not for one choice, which is disavowing myself from gangs and choosing to go to a vocation, I probably not would have lined up with my friend Charles. Therefore, I probably would not have lined up with Naya and Amity. And it would have been an absence somewhere in there. And so I'm just thankful that I got an opportunity to be a part of Amity, because it really is about community, and it really is about treating each other with the respect and integrity that we all deserve. And so that's what we founded on, and hopefully that's what we'll keep practicing. Cool?